Hey guys, you might be wondering why I'm standing in the yarn aisle at Walmart, but no, I'm not actually running an errand for my grandmother. I'm actually doing something for the fish room. In today's tip, I'm going to show you how to make spawning mops for breeding killifish and rainbows. Hey guys, now as I mentioned, I'm going to be showing you how to build something that's pretty simple. A lot of you may already know how to do this, but if you don't, that's what the purpose is. That's the point of this channel, is to be able to help educate you guys, give you some tips and trades. But if you have any interest whatsoever, even a passing interest in rainbow fish, maybe you have them in your community tank, they're absolutely breathtaking fish to keep, super easy to keep, and they're not hard to breed. But the problem being is their fry are very, very small, extremely minuscule, and the fry are sometimes difficult to raise if you don't have the right foods for them. Killifish, on the other hand, there's two real strong methods of breeding killies. There's killifish that are annuals, and they breed in the bottom, in the mud, in the leaf litter and whatnot, and therefore we use things like peat and stuff. And then there's other ones that are plant spawners, and they're continual spawners. Now, what we're doing is we're going to be making mops out of yarn, and I'll show you why, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But what these are designed to do is these are designed to not only mimic the roots, but also the plants themselves, because the rainbows and the killies will spawn almost daily given the environments. But in a community aquarium, you probably won't see any results. You probably won't see a lot of fry. But if we actually do the mops and take the parents out and put them into a nice clean tank with just the mops, they'll breed their brains out and you get lots and lots of eggs. We'll show you pictures of what the eggs look like and how to harvest them and stuff. But to do that, we got to build a mop first. Now, I have my killifish books, some of them. I have some rainbowfish books. You notice they're all different sizes. That's important, okay? This is regular yarn, bought at the store. The one thing that's most important is it's 100% acrylic. Has to say 100% acrylic. Using any of the natural stuff, the problem is it'll still work. The problem being is it'll actually degrade and break down in the water column, and that's going to affect your water parameters and so forth, and we don't need that. So really all we need is acrylic yarn, many different colors. Lots of people have tried different colors. I personally prefer blacks, browns, and greens and stuff like that. But if you go to the really, really bright greens, this is a new type of yarn that I found, and we really, really liked it. I was really excited about it and stuff, but it's a nightmare to find eggs in this stuff. I'm not saying it's not good, but all these leafy tendrils and stuff like that, it made it really, really, really nice for the fish. And these worked really, really well for breeding the fish. The only problem being is, as I say, it was an absolute nightmare finding the actual eggs in those things to separate them. So today, as we got at the store today, as I showed you, we got some camouflage stuff. Sure hope they're going to be able to see it. Now, to start, it's very, very easy, depending on the size of the tank. Now, if you're dealing with something like the Aphasidiums or the Epipleiades, and they're all top fish and stuff like that, you can go with a nice, normal 8-10 inch mop or something like that in a 20-gallon tank, and it's going to be fine. But if you have some of the ones that are like some of the Fungilopanchax, or some of the ones that are, kind of mid-water, also stung around the bottom, you're going to want a mop that's going to drape to the bottom and maybe spread out a little bit, and that gives them some thickness to it and stuff. And either you could float them. I tend to use nice virgin corks. I get them at a wine store or a brewery store for those places, people that like to make their own wine or own beer. You can buy them, they're super, super cheap. I've also recycled them, works fine too. The amount of product that's going to be left over in a recycled cork is not going to be any issue. And then back in the day, for us old people, we also used to use the 35mm film containers, canisters, the little plastic one with a plastic lid, and you just put a little piece of the wool in there, and then that made a nice little bobber. You could also tie a little piece of dense styrofoam, anything at all that's going to make it float. And you'll find some species prefer that it sinks, some species prefers that it floats, and that's all part of the fun and games of breeding fish, is figuring out those little pieces of the puzzles. So to get started, really you're just going to be draping it through the book. Okay, it doesn't really matter where you put it through in the book. And then wrap it a whole bunch of times around the book. We're going to speed this part up, I think. And once we're done wrapping it up a whole bunch of times, cut it. And I also recommend you get a bunch of extra wool. That's going to be what we're going to use to tie it off. There's nothing fancy about this whatsoever. You can't really do it wrong. You can can see I've got a lot of wool there, or yarn I guess is the more correct term, ready to go. Okay, then I'm going to take my strings and I'm going to put them right in the center. Probably should have done that first. And again, you can't mess this up. It's impossible to do it. If I can't mess it up, you can't mess it up. I mess up everything. Tie it in a good secure knot. Now that mop is done. Now some people like to boil them. You don't really need to. These things are usually pretty clean. If you want to do that, that's great. It's going to sink right away. But to me, I usually just rinse it out in fresh water or in a bucket of dirty fish water and wring out all the air bubbles and stuff like that, and then it'll sink right away. And it'll lay like basically a clump on the bottom of the thing. Also good for breeding cories, because cories are often notorious for eating their eggs. But if you have a lot of stuff that actually mimics the roots and plants or the fine leaves, they'll spawn on that, and maybe it'll actually help you out. Your yields of your fry will be a lot higher. Now, before we go further, I've lost the end. Of course I've lost the end. There's the two ends. So what I'm going to do is, because I prefer, most of the time I like top spawning mops. Some people take it really seriously and cut grooves and all sorts of stuff, and like this is going into a fish tank to be able to help me breed. That's really all it's going to do. Honestly, that is all that's required. Now, you can often leave a loop or a strand or something like that, and you can have it so it sits out of the tank, so it's in the corner. You can place exactly, you can use a suction cup with a hook or a little piece of coat hanger or something so that you can hang it in the tank in a certain spot for you. You'll find out certain fish prefer certain things. Some species don't really care. Some might want it nice right in the center of the tank, so it gives them lots of placement so they can go in and breed in different ways and stuff. But honestly, that's doing it yourself. Easy breed spawning mops. And this is really no different than what they use in the koi industry, the goldfish industry, for breeding these things on a large scale. It's just they don't use mop. They don't use a mop like this. They use it out of rigid strands of nylon, almost like you'd get long fibers out of like something like a coarse broom. But no difference. This will work just as fine, and that whole spool only cost a couple of bucks. Do it yourself. Spawning mops. Enjoy.